Hello friends, I am Dr. Lakshmi S. and today I am going to talk to you about the poem Night of the Scorpion written by Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel, born in 1924, is an Indian Jewish poet, playwright and art critic. He is one of the leading Indian English writers and, as the entry in Britannica says about him, is one of the founders of the English vernacular literary genre in India. Born in an affluent family, Ezekiel was educated in Mumbai and London. He later became a teacher in Mithibai College, Mumbai, and held short-term tenures as visiting professor at the University of Leeds and the University of Pondicherry. Ezekiel has brought out many collections of poetry, beginning with Time to Change, published in 1952. He received the Sahitya Academy Award in 1983 and was honored with the Padma Shri Award in 1988. Ezekiel continues to remain very popular and his poems are prescribed for study in schools and colleges. Night of the Scorpion, published in 1965 in the collection titled The Exact Name, is his most prescribed poem. It is not divided into stanzas. Only the last 3 lines stand apart from the rest of the poem. The rest of them come in a continuous stretch. Let me just read the poem to you first. Night of the Scorpion. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of gods 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns, throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. May he sit still, they said. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil, balanced in this unreal world, against the sum of good, become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire, and your spirit of ambition, they said. And they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing. Powder, mixture, herb and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. My mother only said, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." Now that is the poem, Night of the Scorpion. Now here we have the narrator recalling, remembering the night many years ago when he was a little boy, and that particular night when his mother was stung by a scorpion. Now the setting is a village and the family lives there. It is the rainy season and it had been raining continuously for some 10 hours, and the continuous rain outside had driven the little scorpion to seek refuge in a dry place, a safe place beneath a sack of rice. So that is what we see in the first 4 lines. Now the scorpion, as is his nature, he stings and sheds his poison onto a person who is available, and that happens to be the mother of this little boy. The scorpion parts with his poison and injects the poison, which is stored at the tip of his diabolic tail. Diabolic is related to the devil. Here it means evil. So the poison which is stored at the tip of his tongue, he injects it into the flesh of the boy's mother, and once again he goes out into the rain. He risked the rain again, meaning that after stinging the person, the scorpion immediately leaves his hiding place and goes back into the rain. And hearing the news that the neighbor, that is the boy's mother, has been stung by a poisonous scorpion, the neighbors swarm in. And look at the comparison. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. So why are these people compared to flies? Because they make a buzzing noise. They come in hordes, hearing the news of this disaster or of this unfortunate happening, and so they all come in to find out what is happening here, and to give comfort and solace to the family, because a scorpion bite or a sting of a scorpion can be very painful, and for little children it can even be fatal. But here it is an adult, but the villagers, the neighbors, they are concerned, and so they come in to inquire. And he compares them again to the swarms of flies because they are buzzing the name of God, and they're all repeating or chanting the name of God in order to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns, throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls, they searched for him. So then it is a small house with mud-baked walls, and so the people, there doesn't seem to be electricity, and so people come in with the candles and with the lanterns, and there are shadows thrown on the mud walls, and they search for him because they believe that with each movement the scorpion makes, the poison would spread further into the blood of this mother. And so they are looking for the scorpion so that they can find it and crush it to death and stop its movement. So they look everywhere, but then the tiny creature is not to be found, because we know that he has already risked the rain and has gone out into the rain. And the people crowd around the mother. She is in the center. They sit or stand around her, and they keep, they have a lot of superstitions about what would happen to a person when a scorpion stings them, and so they air out all their wisdom, and then they pray that he sits still. So in a tone of incantation, they go on saying, "May he sit still," they said. "May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight," they said. So in this pain, may all your sins of the previous birth, because in India, people believe, especially the earlier generations, they believed in previous birth and rebirth. And so this sting of the scorpion and the suffering resulting from it, they hope that this will lessen or burn away the sins of her previous birth. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth. And again, they just don't go back to the earlier birth, they also look forward to the next birth, and they hope that the pain that the woman is suffering now would take away some of the suffering that she will encounter in her next birth. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain. And so there is this belief that the sum of evil will be balanced with the sum of the good that a person does. And so, whatever happens in this unreal world, again, the Indian philosophy talks about Maya, that everything that you see in this world is Maya, or it is unreal. And so they pray that the suffering that she is going through now would balance or would stand her in good stead, so that the pain that she is now experiencing would increase the sum of good and diminish the sum of evil in her account. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition. So let the poison take away or purify your flesh of desire. So whatever desire, the evil desires you have in your mind, let the poison take all that away. And whatever ambition you have, let it be taken away. And may you be purified of your ambition and desire. So they kept saying all this as they sat around this suffering woman. They sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. So they all have a peace of understanding. That is because the Indian elders had a fatalistic attitude towards life, in the sense that we generally believe that whatever happens is fate, that whatever happens is destined to happen. And so we generally don't question things that happen. We accept it as part of something that we are destined to go through. And that is what results in this peace on their face. They are not too anxious. Like, even if death is going to happen next, they are ready to accept it. That is the fatalistic attitude that Indians generally have. I'm not too sure about the present generation, but that is how the earlier generations used to console themselves. Whatever happens, we hear people saying, what can we do? That is what she is, if it's a she or a he, we say that, that is the line that is drawn on her forehead. She is fated to experience this. When a woman loses her husband when she's young, when she becomes a widow, or when there is the death of a child, or some misfortune falls upon somebody, we have an excuse for everything, saying that it's all fate, it's all destiny. So that's exactly what you see here. And so they all have the peace of understanding. They're all philosophers who understand that life is just this much, that anything can happen, and whatever happens is fate, and whatever happens for the good. So the peace of understanding on the face, there is no panic. And so more people, more candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. So rain hasn't stopped yet. More insects crowd in as the people come in with the lanterns, because we know how insects are attracted by the light. And so more neighbors, so an excess of everything, more candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. And you have the room full of people crowding in. And today we know that when somebody falls sick or something happens to somebody, the first thing we do is we remove people from the room. We say, keep away. But those days, and especially in villages, that was not how it was. People used to crowd in, trying to help, trying to offer some kind of a solace, giving advice, unsolicited advice. So that is a typical Indian rural scene is what is portrayed here. So people come in, and my mother twisted through and through. So while all this is going on, there is no release or no kind of ease to the pain that the woman is going through. And my mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. So the pain is so excruciating that the mother is groaning. And as she lies on the mat, as the center of focus for all these people. And the father, in the meantime, now the father is an educated man, and if the reference is to the father of Ezekiel himself, Ezekiel's father was a professor of botany at Wilson College, which is one of the oldest colleges in India. And he is a learned man, a man of science, being a botany professor. He doesn't believe in superstitions. He doesn't understand, or he doesn't really accept anything that these people tell him. And so he, in his own way, is trying to bring relief to his wife. He's a skeptic. He's a rationalist. And he's trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid. And so he tries to help her in his own way. He applies powders, mixtures of medicines, herbs, and hybrids. Hybrids is a blend of more than one medicine. And maybe he is panicked because he doesn't believe in fate. And so he is panicked, and he seems to be an agnostic who doesn't really believe in religion. And so he is trying his own ways of saving his wife, bringing relief to her. And the boy remembers that the father even poured a little paraffin. Paraffin is the wax upon the bitten toe, and he even set a match to it. And believing or trying to hope that as the paraffin burns, the poison too would be burnt out. That again doesn't seem to be the right thing to do. But then, out of desperation, that is what the father does. And the boy says, I watched the flame feeding on my mother. And while the father is doing this, you have on the other side the holy man of the village who is performing his rites. And his rites is he is in chanting prayers, some mantras. So his incantation is going. That is his way of taming the poison, of trying to stop the poison from acting. And then this went on for a long time. And after 20 hours, it lost its sting. And finally, after 20 hours of excruciating pain, slowly the pain subsided. That is a natural way of a scorpion sting. Whatever you do, the sting would persist, the pain would persist. And finally, after some 20 hours, the pain naturally dies down. So in spite of all that the father did, all that the villagers said and did, it took the poison, the venom, took its own time to act on the body and finally to lose its power. And then the mother is finally relieved. And what did she say when she was okay, or when she was relieved? She said, my mother only said, thank God, the scorpion picked on me and spared my children. So that is what she said, that she's so happy, or she's so grateful to God that the scorpion picked on her instead of her children, because she knows that her children would not be able to tolerate this pain. And she wouldn't want something bad as this to happen to her children. And so she thanks God, not because she is safe now, but because her children were safe. So there you see the typical Indian mother, or maybe is it right to say the Indian mother? Maybe mothers everywhere would want their children shielded from all suffering. They would even sacrifice their lives in order to save their child or children from danger. So we here see exactly the same picture of a mother who has gone through 20 years of suffering, and the mother who finally expresses a relief, not at her being free from pain, but at her children being freed or being spared from this torture. So that is the poem Night of the Scorpion. And it's such a beautiful poem. I remember having studied this in school. I remember having taught this in many classes. But each time I read it, I enjoy it all over again. And Nissim Ezekiel, this is considered to be one of the finest poems of Nissim Ezekiel. And we see here the conflict, a conflict of many things. And no wonder the critic R. Parthasarathi has mentioned that this poem is noted for its parallelism, or the bringing together of opposites. You have on one side the primitive, as we see in the villagers, the farmers, the simple people who are superstitious, who pray, who chant, and who voice their beliefs. So the primitive. And on the other side, you have the sophisticated, that is the father, the man of science, who tries medicines and herbs and even paraffin on his wife in order to save her from the pain. Again, you have a contrast of tradition versus modernity. The villagers and their superstitions, and the holy man who believe, they are all people who believe in tradition. Whereas the father who believes in science and medicines is a representative of modernity. And so there you can see this parallelism. That is something, that is a notable feature of this poem. And then again you see another theme here, you can see, is the selfless love and concern of the mother for her children. That is again a pet theme in Indian poetry in general, because in Indian culture, motherhood holds an exalted position. The mother is always placed on the pedestal. And we hear of mothers sacrificing lives, sacrificing their lives for their children, sacrificing their careers for their children. Whereas in recent times, the attitudes have changed, and we have writers like Shashi Deshpande speaking about the difficulties of motherhood, and of many modern writers and activists saying that motherhood is something thrust upon women in order to limit themselves within the four walls of the home, and glorifying motherhood so that women are forced to stay back home and look after the children. So that attitude you can see now recently, and we know that women of today's generations, they have learned to balance motherhood along with the various other roles that they play. Whereas in earlier times, motherhood was a kind of a full-time, hands-on job that kept women confined within the limits of their home. And so we have that picture of the mother as the one who sacrifices everything that she has for her children. And we see that this poem again displays vivid imagery. You can almost see the action going on right from the time when he says that the rain has been falling for, or it has been raining for 10 hours continuously. You can feel the wet, the damp atmosphere, and then you can almost see the tiny little creature, the scorpion, running, seeking a dry place and crawling under a sack. And then after some time he comes, and the mother must have been walking by, or maybe she was standing somewhere near the sack, and instinctively, because this little creature is designed to inject poison, so it finds the toe of the mother quite very close to him, and he stings her, and then the mother is in pain. And then you see the people coming and talking and going, the shadows, the lanterns, the candles, the noises, the voices, like the buzzing of the bee. All that is so vividly portrayed. and the expressions on their faces. As he said here, the peace, what was it, the peace of understanding on each face, and the anguish on the mother's face, the anxiety on the father's face, and you can even see, the when the child says, the child, who is bewildered by all that is happening in front of him, and the keen interest with which he watches everything, the way the flame is feeding on my mother. So he wonders, he looks at the flame and he wonders what his mother must be feeling. Doesn't it hurt her? Doesn't it burn her? So all that is so vividly portrayed in this poem. And it is one poem that is rich in imagery. And again, it also brings in the warmth of caring and concern that is found in the village community, as opposed to the urban setting where people hardly know who stays in the house, in the neighboring house, or in the house next door. Because in cities, people are always busy. You go home, you go out in the morning to your workplace or schools or offices or wherever, and then you come back in the evening and you have so much to do at home, you hardly go out and talk to the others. Sometimes you don't even know who your neighbor is. Whereas in the village, everybody knows the other person. And so when something happens to any one person, the news spreads like wildfire, and people come crowding in to find out what they can do, to find out what has happened. And word spreads from person to person, and everyone comes to pay a visit and see whether there is something that they can do, or is some word of comfort they can offer. So that typical Indian village environment is also very beautifully portrayed in the poem. And and also this changing rhythms the poet uses. You feel the tension of this sting of the scorpion in the beginning, and then you can see the stress that is building up in the room when people voice out their assumptions, and when they start praying, and you have the mantric chants, the incantations, the name of God being repeatedly chanted, and it takes you to the high point of tension, the father, his anxiety, and then finally the relief at the end. So the poet has very effectively changed the rhythms of the voices, of the tone of the poem, so that you, the reader, can feel everything that all these people in the poem feel. And from the rising tension to the relief at the end. And you also feel that you have been there throughout the entire span of action, the 20 hours of suffering that the mother has gone through. The reader too shares that feeling. R. Parthasarathi, the critic, observes that the poem weaves an intricate relationship between the domestic tragedy and the surrounding community. And the full credit goes to Nissim Ezekiel in that he has succeeded so well in portraying the essence of Indianness in this poem, which remains the most popular among his works.